You ever have someone disrespect you so casually, so smugly, that it sticks with you all day? A guy stole my parking spot, laughed in my face, and thought that was the end of it. What he didn't realize was that revenge doesn't always look loud. Sometimes, it waits quietly in aisle 7. If you've ever been disrespected and couldn't say anything in the moment, this story is for you. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and stick around, because tonight's story proves that sometimes, the smallest move can completely ruin someone's plans. Last night started like the most ordinary kind of errand night, no big plans. Just my wife and me heading to Target, grabbing a handful of groceries, maybe a couple impulse buys we didn't actually need, and head home. It was one of those evenings where your mind is already halfway done for the day. You're relaxed. On autopilot. Just checking boxes, and that's usually when people like this show up. As I turned into the first parking aisle near the entrance, I saw it, that universal, sacred sight every driver understands instantly. A car backing out. You don't rush it. You don't crowd them. You just flick your turn signal on and wait your turn like a decent human being. So that's what I did. Blinded indicator clicking softly. Foot on the brake. No rush. No stress. Then I noticed a Chrysler 300 roll up behind me. I clocked it in the mirror, black, tinted windows, sitting just a little too close. The kind of car that's trying very hard to look important. They waited maybe 10 seconds. 10 very short, impatient seconds. Then came the honk. Not the polite "hey, just checking" tap. The irritated, aggressive kind. Before I could even process it, the Chrysler whipped around me, sped past, and disappeared down the aisle like I was somehow in the wrong for waiting my turn. I remember thinking, wow. Someone's in a hurry tonight. The parked car finally began to move, but instead of backing straight out, they angled toward me. I had to wait another moment for them to clear the spot safely. And that's when I heard it. The engine revving. That Chrysler 300 came flying back down the aisle in reverse, fast. Way faster than necessary. Before I could even finish turning into the space, they slammed the accelerator, shot backward, and stole the spot clean out from under me. Perfect execution. Zero shame. The driver locked eyes with me through the windshield. No apology. No awkward wave. Just a cold, defiant stare. And then, almost worse, the girl in the passenger seat turned, looked at my wife and me, and laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A mean one. The kind that says, yeah, we did that. What are you gonna do? I felt it in my chest. Immediately. That tight pressure. That sudden warmth behind the ears. That split-second fantasy where you imagine saying something clever, something sharp, something that would wipe that smirk off their faces. But I didn't. I exhaled. Kept my mouth shut. Pulled into the next aisle. Because we're adults, right? Because it's not worth escalating over a parking spot. But that doesn't mean it didn't linger. That moment didn't just pass. It sat there. As my wife and I walked toward the Target entrance, I saw them again. The driver. The laughing girlfriend. And now, 2 more people climbing out of the back seat. A full group. 4 of them, joking, loud, moving like they owned the place. We all ended up walking in together. That's the part that really sticks with you, when life refuses to give you distance from someone who just disrespected you. I didn't say a word. Didn't glare. Didn't gesture. Didn't give them the satisfaction. But when we reached the carts, opportunity knocked quietly. I got there just before he did. I grabbed a cart and, unintentionally on purpose, took my sweet time unhooking it. Metal clanking. Strap sticking. Just slow enough to be annoying. He stood there, waiting. That felt good. Petty? Absolutely. Enough? Not even close. Because that kind of disrespect doesn't disappear in 10 seconds. It waits. After the carts, we finally split directions. My wife and I moved past the registers and the pharmacy, heading toward grocery, the calm, fluorescent-lit heart of Target. The hum of freezers, the soft squeak of cartwheels, that oddly comforting smell of packaged bread and cleaning supplies. As we walked, I noticed something that stuck in my mind. The group, parking spot guy and his audience, peeled off the other way. They headed down the racetrack past women's clothing, moving deeper into the store. At first, that felt like closure. Good, I thought. Different sides of the store. No more interactions. But here's the thing about disrespect. When it happens quietly, without consequences, your brain keeps replaying it. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way. In little flashes. The laugh. The look. The rev of the engine. As I pushed the cart, my body was going through the motions, scanning shelves, grabbing items, nodding when my wife asked questions, but part of my mind was still back in that parking lot. They really thought that was funny. They really thought they won. About 10 minutes passed. Maybe 15. Enough time for the adrenaline to fade, but not long enough for the irritation to disappear. That's when we turned the corner toward the chip aisle. And almost like some twisted sense of symmetry, there they were. All four of them. Same group. Same energy. Same careless confidence. They were laughing, standing too close together, completely blocking the aisle like the universe revolved around them. We slowed, waited. They didn't notice. Eventually they moved on, drifting down the aisle, still talking, still loud. But their cart stayed behind. Unattended. Parked casually by the end cap. And that's when I saw it. Nestled right there among bags of chips and candy was a video game, sealed inside one of those bulky plastic security cases. Bright cover art. Brand new. Full price. Next to it were Valentine's chocolates. Bags and boxes. The kind you bring home when you're planning a cozy, lazy night. Immediately, a picture formed in my head. Pizza boxes on the table. Beer bottles clinking. Controllers charging. Someone saying, "All right, who's first?" And suddenly, that laughter in the parking lot had context. This wasn't just a shopping trip. This was their night. Their reward. Their fun. And for a split second, just a split second, I considered walking past. Being the bigger person. Letting it go. But then I remembered the reverse acceleration. The glare. The laugh. No remorse. No hesitation, just entitlement. And something inside me clicked. Not anger. Not rage. Something calmer. Colder. This wasn't about destruction or confrontation. This was about consequences. I didn't want them to know it was me. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want a moment. I wanted time to do the work. Confusion. Delayed realization. That quiet, awful moment when you know something is wrong, but it's too late to fix it. I reached into their cart. My hand didn't shake. The store noise faded out, the carts, the footsteps, the overhead music, it all blurred into background static. I lifted the video game smoothly. Then, just to sweeten the chaos, I grabbed one of the bags of chocolate. Not all of it. Just enough to make it incomplete. To make it almost right. I shifted a couple of items, rustled the contents just enough that everything still looked normal at a glance. That was important. If they noticed immediately, this would only be an inconvenience. Annoying, sure, but fixable. But if they didn't? If they paid, left, drove home. That was where the real damage lived. My wife glanced at me. I could tell she registered something had happened, not what, just that something was off. I leaned in and whispered, "Trust me." She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. We walked away. The next few minutes felt electric. Every time we passed them in the store, my heart ticked up a notch. Once near frozen foods. Once by household supplies. They laughed. Joked. Acted exactly like people who had no idea their night had already been sabotaged. They never checked their cart. Not once. That's the thing about confidence, it blinds you. Eventually, we headed toward checkout, and there they were again. Right in front of us. First in line at self-checkout. All four together. No one peeled off toward electronics. No frantic backtracking. Nothing. This meant one of two things: either they'd noticed and given up, or they still had absolutely no idea. I leaned casually against my cart and watched. They scanned items. Bagged chips. Bagged candy. No game. No pause. No confusion. Phone tapped to pay. Transaction complete. They rolled their cart out the door and disappeared into the parking lot. By the time we finished scanning and exited ourselves, their car was gone. By the time we pulled out of the Target parking lot, the adrenaline was already fading. That's how I knew it was the right kind of revenge. No fear of consequences. My wife glanced over at me as we drove home, the parking lot lights sliding past the windows. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm great." And I really was. Because the best part of what I'd done hadn't happened yet. Not even close. I couldn't stop picturing it. Not in a malicious way, more like a mental epilogue unfolding on its own. I imagined them pulling into their driveway. The Chrysler shutting off with that same aggressive hum. Keys tossed onto the counter. Jackets dropped. Pizza boxes opening, someone grabbing beers. Someone else booting up the TV. Controllers coming out. That perfect moment. The moment when the day melts away and the night finally begins. And then, hey, where's the game? At first it's casual. A quick glance back into the grocery bags. A chuckle. Did you put it in the other one? More rustling. More checking. Chips? Yup. Candy? Mostly. Receipts? That's when the silence hits. That sharp, sinking stillness where everyone realizes something is wrong. Maybe someone laughs nervously. No way. No way, we forgot it. Someone grabs the receipt. And there it is. No video game. Paid for everything except the one thing the night was built around. That's when frustration takes over. The blame game starts. Were you watching the cart? I thought you grabbed it. Didn't you scan it? Phones come out. Target closing time flashes across the screen. Too late. No easy fix. No undo button. Just disappointment sitting heavy in the room. And that's the moment I really smiled. Here's the thing. If I'd confronted them in the parking lot, if I'd yelled or argued or gotten aggressive, they would have gotten exactly what they wanted. Attention. Conflict, a story where they were the victims. But this? This was consequence without confrontation. They never got to defend themselves. Never got to laugh it off. Never got to shift blame outward. All they had was confusion. And confusion sticks longer than anger. I didn't take money out of their wallet. I didn't scream or threaten or escalate. I didn't even benefit. I just removed the payoff. And that's why it felt fair. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that, for once, disrespect didn't go unanswered. My wife laughed softly and shook her head. I still can't believe you did that. I shrugged. Parking spots matter. If this story gave you that slow, satisfying sense of justice, hit like and subscribe, it helps more than you think. And tell me in the comments, what's the quietest revenge you've ever seen, or pulled off? Because sometimes, the best revenge doesn't make noise. It waits.
If you like stories where people finally get what they deserve, click the playlist on screen and binge the rest.